supporting role in European security, refocusing on missions outside Europe. Well, forget about that. That's imperialist, colonialist attacks on developing countries, right? Remember, the NATO slogan in the late in the 1980s was out of area or out of business. In other words, since the tensions in Europe were declining at that time in the 80s, that NATO would have to become an imperialist enforcer against countries like Argentina, let's say, outside of the defined area of the North Atlantic Treaty, and they did that, and that's been very, very bad. So we want to forget about that. We want to go back to the original NATO area of 1949 and forget about the imperialist part. So Ukraine and the United States would agree that Ukraine would not be a candidate for NATO membership now or in the future. And the European Union would agree to work with Russia to make any possible future Ukrainian relationship with that union, including membership, compatible with Ukraine's participation in Russia's Eurasian Economic Union project. Now, that's not easy to do, but at least it has this idea that there are paramount Russian interests, and given the state of the world, that has to come first. Oh, you don't like that? Ever hear of the Monroe Doctrine? What do you think the Monroe Doctrine was? The Monroe Doctrine says the United States will not tolerate hostile puppet states, colonies, of hostile foreign extra-American powers anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. And that was actually not that bad in the sense that it at least prohibited many imperialist adventures. Say Napoleon III in Mexico was slowed down by that. So, and you'll be interested to know that John Forbes Kerry of Skull and Bones has thrown the Monroe Doctrine out the window just in the last couple of years, that it's no longer in force. I guess he's doing that so that he can argue that the Russians can't have it either. But of course the U.S. had it for 175 years, Monroe Doctrine, right? Controversial, but it's going to be controversial in this case too. So the basic idea is, for the sake of world peace, we cannot have tiny cliques of fascists, adventurers, other turbulent forces dictating the state of the world. We simply can't have it. Ukraine will have to knuckle under to the general needs of Europe, United States, Russia, Canada, all of the participants, China, Japan. All of these are much more important than a group of tin pot fascistoid agitators in Kiev who happen to have control of the Rada at the moment because of a color revolution. So again, it's take a look at this. It's the win-win. And of course, this has caused a freak out. Crafting a win-win-win for Russia, Ukraine, and the West by Michael E. O'Hanlon and Jeremy Shapiro, Washington Post, but you can read it for free at the Brookings Institution website. So fine. And of course, there are many, many freakouts in the Washington Post and elsewhere. All right. Now, Syria. We have some very interesting stuff. And again, it's some notion of realism is somehow creeping in. There may be something happening. These are things that deserve to be at least given critical support and expanded, right? They're much too timid. But here's the idea. We have a certain Syria expert called Nir Rosen, Nirrosen. And a couple of months ago, he submitted a still secret 55-page report to the State Department and to the National Security Council. I'm afraid he's given it to Robert Malley. I'm afraid very much that Robert Malley is now a senior director at the National Security Council. Robert Malley has no business being there. He is, to the best of my knowledge, a humanitarian bomber on the lines of Samantha Power. If he's not, show us. Deny it in words, and above all, refute that in deeds, Robert Malley, if that's not who you are. But here's the idea. The Near-Rosen report, 55 pages, and then there's an abstract of about a fifth of that. It says essentially the whole idea, this whole edifice of policy, which is based on the need to oust Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government, is wrong. It's a failure. It's a loser. It helps terrorists. Don't do it. He says, in effect, what you need to do is to try to promote local ceasefires between the Assad government forces on the one hand and the various rebels on the other. This is in Foreign Policy, foreignpolicy.com. Look it up, Near-Rosen. So Near-Rosen writes to Robert Malley, there are no moderate insurgents. There are none that are moderate ideologically, nor are there any moderate by their actions. The Assad government, he writes, is strong in health, education, social welfare. It is progressive and secular, with a good civil service. Welcome to our second hour here in our Between the Years program. We're recording on the afternoon of Tuesday, the 23rd of December. You'll hear this weekend between Christmas and New Year's. So season's greetings to everybody of whatever persuasion, right? Especially to those of goodwill. And remember now, Reverend Pinckney is in jail thanks to the machinations of this despicable machine. So it's Edward Pinkney, Pinkney, number, hashtag in other words, 294671, 294671, G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility, G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility, 3855 Cooper Street, Cooper, Jackson, Michigan, 49201. That's 49201. So send some support to Reverend Pinckney, a card, a greeting, political encouragement to hang tough, because he's going to hang tough, but it's easier if people are clearly standing behind him. All right, so we're still going through this report by Near-Rosen, the 55-page single-spaced report that essentially repudiates the entire crackpot lunatic policy of Samantha Power, of Susan Rice, of John Forbes Kerry, of that crazy woman Patterson, right? Her love of the Muslim Brotherhood. She tried to overthrow General Sisi in Egypt, right? The embrace of Hamas, because Hamas is approved by Turkey and by Qatar. This is no good. So Near-Rosen, a realist, he says again, the Assad government is not the worst in that region by any stretch of the imagination. They have good health and education and social welfare. I would add, they have price subsidies. They have price subsidies on bread, on rent, on cooking oil, on heating. They have a panoply of stuff that we could dream about here. And again, it mainly helps the very poor. And you'll find the middle-class, blasé, pro-Western individualist who wants a Mercedes-Benz and says, it doesn't help me, I want a Mercedes-Benz. Don't tell me about helping the poor to buy bread. Well, I'm sorry, that's exactly the ballgame right there. So, according to Near-Rosen, the Assad government is progressive and secular, staunchly secular, with a decent, actually a good civil service and an awareness of the need for infrastructure. So now, Near-Rosen continues. The rebels are fanatics. They have become hopelessly radicalized. They have been turned into terrorists. That's what they were from the beginning, but that's okay. We'll take it. Assad is staunchly secular. In other words, he says it's not that the Assad people are Alawites and they're fighting as Alawites against another group which is sectarian Sunni. No, it's that you have Sunni sectarians I would say, crazies selected by Bandar and company against a government which is, in some respects, Alawite in origin, but mainly it's staunchly secular. This is secularism against religious fanaticism. That's what it is. And Rosen gets that too. Robert Malley, of course, is going to get this. That is not encouraging. I can't imagine Robert Malley doing anything very good. But anyway, one of the things we want is we demand the publication of that report. So Nir Rosen, Nirrosen, wouldn't comment for a story about this in Foreign Policy Magazine, that website. We want to see that report, because that report is a key to overthrowing the warmongers. And of course, as soon as I say warmongers, remember, I should have mentioned this before, our slogan for the holiday season is hashtag Fire Allen for Xmas. Hashtag FIREALLEN. The Arabic number 4. XMAS. Hashtag Fire Allen for Xmas. Fire Allen for Christmas. That's got to go out. I urge people, don't get diverted into struggles about torture from 10 years ago, right? Dick Cheney is an odious ogre. Fine. There are left liberals that will attack him. But there are no left liberals that are going to try to stop the next war, the coming war, the war that's hanging over our head. For that, you need hashtag Fire Allen for Xmas. And that goes right to this clique that's pushing Obama. They are worse than Obama, and they push Obama in directions that are worse than the ones that he might spontaneously choose. We're not for Obama, but have a brain. When there are people who are much bigger warmongers compared to Obama, attack the bigger warmongers. That's a good rule of thumb. If you're not attacking the biggest warmonger you can see, then indeed you are spinning your wheels when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, let's see, and ISIS. ISIS is in trouble. ISIS could be finished off. That's why Allen is working so hard. Allen is working and scheming day and night how to save ISIS. That's what he's doing. He says, we want to use ISIS against Syria. We want to use ISIS against Iran. We want to use ISIS in Chechnya against Russia. Well, no. Stop Allen. Fire Allen for Xmas. But the other thing here is ISIS itself, right? They have been, in spite of the fact that these airstrikes have not been as big as we wanted more. We wanted 1,000 bomber raid on one day, 1,000 sorties one day. Remember, Iraq, 1 month, 100,000 sorties 24 years ago. This time, 10, 20 sorties. We need more. Clobber ISIS. Clobber ISIS. Those are killers, right? No matter where they go, they're going to be killers. And here's the thing. A lot of their dupes and recruits, their useful idiots, have now seen the light and they're trying to leave. And what does ISIS do? They kill them. In effect, they shoot them in the back when they're trying to run away from this futile and idiotic conflict. The reports are now that ISIS has executed 100 would-be defectors. And largely, these are people who came from Europe, and they were caught up in the hype, right? That ISIS was sophisticated, that it was a potent force, that it was formidable, that it was going to conquer the world for the caliphate, and you wanted to be part of it, and it was going to be a cakewalk. That was part of it too, the ISIS cakewalk. And now, of course, winter is there. There are bombings, not enough, but there are bombings. The Kurds are hanging tough. The Syrian army is implacably marching towards Aleppo, actually trying to clear out neighborhoods of Aleppo. There's increased resistance coming from the Iraqi Kurds, increased resistance from the Iraqi army. The Shiite militias of the lower Euphrates have gone north of Baghdad and are effectively fighting and killing these ISIS characters. Remember